You're listening to the Roundup Podcast, a podcast on reaching the college campus, developing leaders, and sending out kingdom multipliers. This podcast is created by the Southern Baptists of Texas Convention and provided through cooperative program giving.
Howdy, friends, and welcome to the Roundup Podcast. I am your host, Mitch Tidwell. It is a joy to have you with us today. I'm really excited about today's episode as we talk about how college ministry from adult leader perspective. As I get to look at churches all over Texas and all over the nation, I think one of the things that is not talked about a lot is and that is most helpful to a college minister is their relationships with the adults that have been leading in that ministry and will be leading long after they're gone. So in order to help me do this today, I've got my friend and co-host for today, Chris Millar. Chris, what's up, man?
Hey, Mitch. Thanks for pulling us in today. Proud to be on here.
Dude, glad to have you. And we're going to talk to Travis Henderson today, who has a relationship with Chris Millar. You guys served together at University Heights. Travis, how you doing, man?
Good. Glad to be here.
Oh, man, glad to have you. So I asked these two guys to be on because I thought this would be such a great conversation. Travis has been serving in college ministry for around 25 years as an adult leader in a church, as an unpaid. He's got a job, or he did have a job. You're retired now. But he had a job and just serving in his local church. And he's been at UHBC for 20 years, or a little over 20 years, Travis?
22-ish.
Okay, 22 years. So for some of you college ministers, longer than you've been alive. And
yes.
Chris was a college minister there, was planted out of University Heights Baptist Church, and but he's got a great relationship with Travis. So, guys, thanks for being on. And Travis, hey, let's just jump right in. Man, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your family, and about your church.
Okay. My name is Travis Henderson. Like Mitch said, I just recently retired after 31 years of working for the prison system, the schools in the prison system in the state of Texas. Married to my wife, Susan. We've been married for 30 plus years now, longer than most of y'all have been alive.
Yeah.
Well, we have two daughters that are 26 and 23, and the oldest one got married last year. And I pretty much grew up in church. I was pretty much born in the nursery. I think I was like 3 days old when they drugged me to church the first time. So I'm one of those kids that was drugged to church and grown up loving the church, well, most of the time anyway.
Good. That's awesome. And how long? So now you said you started doing college ministry about 25 years ago. Would love to hear about how you kind of got into that and your passion developed for college ministry.
And just to be clear, that means I was 6 years old when Travis started doing college ministry. Just to throw that in.
So maybe you were in like kindergarten, possibly first grade at that point, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me, Chris. It's actually a funny story, Mitch. College ministry 25 years ago looked a whole lot different than it does today.
Yeah.
25 years ago, there were a few churches doing some things. There were very few parachurch type places doing college ministry. And I was always around college students, being here in Huntsville, around Sam Houston. So I was always around college students. But I think what really kicked it off for me was I have a middle brother who's a pastor down in League City.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Trent. And Trent was at Baylor in the mid-90s, and he got involved with the college ministry there and actually volunteered there and actually served with them there with some guy named Louis Giglio. You might have heard of him.
Man, I've heard of him.
Yeah. So Trent's like, hey, you need to come up and see what we're doing. We're doing some cool stuff up here. Like, man, we got some cool music. And that was like, just when worship music was coming out and, really kicking off. And he's like, you need to come up here on Monday night. We have this Bible study. So, being young then, I could drive like 2 hours to Waco and like stay up there till like, 11 and 12 and then drive home at 2 and get up and go to work the next day. Not so much anymore. But that was my real first exposure to like what college ministry could be and like the possibilities that we weren't really seeing here at Sam Houston and Huntsville at that point. But I was like, whoa, like we can do something. Not exactly like that because it's not going to fit for everybody, but there are lots of possibilities out there for things to do, and we need to do some things. We need to ramp it up some. We need to do some things different and get college students involved, not just your typical Sunday, hey, let's have Bible study in the morning, let's have church, and then maybe go to lunch, and then we're done for the week. So we need to do some things different. And that was kind of my what really pulled me into college ministry, to seeing how on fire these kids were, and seeing also it wasn't just kids that came to church. There were people that looked like me. There were people that didn't look like me. There were people that I remember one time worshiping next to a guy that had like a green and purple mohawk. I was like, okay, but that was a little different for me. But 25 years ago, that was a little different too. But it allowed me to see that like people can look all different kinds of ways and still love Jesus and still need Jesus.
Yeah, man. Well, I can imagine, in 25 years, what college ministry has looked like, how it's changed. I know that, Travis, that you've got, I would imagine, like with University Heights, I was, with you guys in January, and I was just really impressed by what seems to be such a long-running ministry there, and how you guys have supported that. So I'd love to hear about your experience there at University Heights. And by the way, how many college ministers have you seen at University Heights in your 20 plus years? I want to ask you that.
I don't know, probably, what are we at, Chris, 7 or 8? Sound about right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a key leader who kind of spearheaded a lot of the beginnings of it. As far as like a more formal, organized college ministry goes, a guy named Bert Lyle. And so then you had guys like Bert, you had David Gentiles for a season, you had Daniel Rowe for a season, you had myself, you've had Gavin, you've had kind of a hodgepodge of some key leaders like Dana and Marshall and Josh in there for a little bit. So probably 6 or 7. But I think just some context for listeners as well, as you hear Travis talk about a long historical perspective of college ministry. Shortly after Peter and Paul finished their ministry in the book of Acts, that's when Travis picked up doing college ministry at University Heights. And so, but University Heights isn't.
That just landed for me.
University Heights isn't like a super hip, attractive modern church.
Yeah.
And certainly was even farther from that image 25 years ago. And I think a lot of us have a picture in our head of college ministry as it's got to be this kind of high production quality, very, as they'd say today, vibing kind of atmosphere. But I think one of the things I hope listeners hear today in this kind of interview with Travis is, all it takes for adults to get in the game in college ministry is a heart for college students. It doesn't have to have some cool, sleek appearance. It just looks like caring about the lives of students. And I think, it's remarkable to be on a podcast today with a guy who's been doing that for longer than a lot of listeners have been alive. And it's rarely looked really cool. But it's been marked by faithfulness. And I think Travis is an unbelievable example of faithfulness in the same direction. And so just for some context, University Heights hasn't been some big production ministry, but they've faithfully loved college students for a long time. And so I was one of those students. I was a freshman at SAM and met Travis. And so I got to experience Travis as an adult leader in college ministry. And then Travis got to experience me as a student and then as a college pastor. And so just long faithfulness in the same direction has been such a gift to that church from people just like Travis.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Chris, and providing some context to that. Travis, I'd love for you to share with the listeners just a little bit about your ministry experience as that adult volunteer, and what are some things that really, I don't know, as you look back on the last 20 years that have really stuck out that college ministers have done well, and maybe some things that maybe they haven't done so well when it comes to relating with their adult leaders.
Okay. Well, I'm going to throw it out, kind of along with what Chris said as well. It's so easy when you have a pastor that supports you as well. Richard Rogers is our pastor. You and I and Richard met here recently, so you kind of heard some of this as well.
Yeah.
But like Chris and I've been at conferences or different places, and I look at Chris and said, "Does Richard even know we're here?" And they're like, "I don't know," And so it's great working with a pastor that says, like, "I have a job, you have a job, college ministry, go do it. Like y'all do that well, just go do it. If you need me, ask, I'll answer. If you need my opinion, I'll give it to you. But just go do it." And so we're not worried about, well, what's Richard going to think? We just go do it. And Richard's got our back. And if we do something wrong, he'll tell us. But not that we ever did anything wrong, Chris. But
never did anything.
Never.
Wrong.
But he's like, "Okay, don't do that again. Go tell people about Jesus." And so that's what we do. So. Okay, back to your original question. So,
but to your point, Travis, with Richard, I think the great thing about him is he is very supportive and like releasing, ministry to you guys. But he's also doesn't like abdicate. Like I don't want to. He's very supportive. I was even in January when I was with you guys and he was there and he got on stage and he talked to the students and I thought, hey, this is awesome. A guy that empower and releases people to lead. So that's such a great asset from a church as a pastor that truly believes in the college ministry. Such a great thing. I'm sorry I interrupt you. Go ahead, Travis.
No, and that's a great example for our students. I mean, for us in ministry and for our students, because then we're able to empower our students and release our students as well to let them try something. It doesn't always work, no, but we've all been in that same boat too. We've done stuff that hadn't always worked, and we just pick it up and start over. And it's like, okay, let's don't do that again. Let's try something different.
Yeah.
And I think that's great with college ministry, to empower our students to try things and do things to do it. So my ministry, wow. So it started, I think kind of how we got started at UHBC was cooking. We had Truth on Sunday nights at that time, and we fed.
By the way, Truth is the midweek service. Or the
right, Truth is our midweek service, yeah. So it's on Tuesday now, but we had it on Sunday nights at the time. And Afshin Ziafat was speaking then. And so we had probably 100, 150 on Sunday nights. And for some strange reason, we thought it was a great idea to feed college students on Sunday night. And it actually stemmed from the dining halls on campus being closed on Sunday. So we'd feed them a meal on Sunday night. So we were helping some friends do that. And then you're just around these students all the time. They're like, okay, we need to be around these students. So that was fun, just an easy way to get plugged in and jump in. It's like, hey, do you want to come cook? Sure, we love to cook, so let's do it. Then from there, we started hosting students in our home a lot. We've had students living in our home pretty much forever, currently still. So that's always a fun thing as well. But just in the 20-something years, I think I've done a little bit of everything with it. I've done, I've spoken at events, I've done weddings, I've baptized students, planned events, done budgets, a little bit of anything and everything that needed to get done. But I think the key on that was to find, as an adult or adult leaders, to find places that you can fill in. So if you have a pastor that is great at speaking and great at building relationships, then I need to be on the other side of that. I need to be taking care of some of the administrative stuff, or, hey, let me go to this meeting. Let me go do this. So you can have time to study. You can have time to go spend with these students, to be on campus. So, let me handle these things. And I think that's one thing Chris and I had a good relationship with. Was, I think Chris kind of threw some things to me that he knew I would enjoy or would handle. And I kind of hopefully took some things off of Chris, so Chris could do things that he was good at. And of course, we don't always get to do things that are just fun, or we like to do. But I think that's a huge thing, is to, when you have a college pastor, a college minister, to know what their strengths and weaknesses are, so you can help them grow in those areas that they may need help in. Because I've got a lot of experience working with people and doing other things, but to help them grow, but also to help them succeed in those things. Like, let me take this off of you so you can prepare for this event coming up this weekend. Or, I think just one example with Chris was finishing his master's. He was up at DTS for, I don't know, 6 weeks, 8 weeks in the summer. And so basically he's like, okay, here's our plan for the summer, go. Like, okay, we got it. We went and met freshmen at freshman orientation. We just took care of things while Chris was off at seminary finishing up. And it was just real easy for us to do because we have that relationship. But I think the other thing that I probably wouldn't have said this, but it's become more apparent to me even more recently, is it allows me to grow a ton as well. Being around students that challenge you, you don't always see that, or I didn't always see it or consciously see it, but like being around students that are constantly asking you questions about why do people do this, or why the Bible doesn't do this, or why do you believe this? Those kind of things, it forces you to grow. You have to be on top of your game or they'll eat you up. And so that really has challenged me in a good way to be in the Word every day, to study, to ask questions, to help disciple students. And I think for me, one of the most fun things is just like bringing some students alongside and just doing life with them, just discipling. I've taken them to meet people I'm meeting with. I've taken them to meetings. I've taken them into prison with me. I've taken them different places that, just get to see how we handle life. And some of that now is we've gone through a season here recently of a ton of our students getting married, and, just being able to see how Susan and I do life together and how we get along together and how we deal with difficult situations or easy situations or whatever. And just try to handle all those things, just to be an example for them.
Yeah. It sounds like, oh, go ahead, Chris.
Can I jump in here, Mitch?
Yeah,
I think just as someone who is a student and then a college pastor at University Heights with Travis, I think, I'm just thinking about some of the listeners on this podcast, probably primarily college leaders, whether it's student leaders or adult leaders or college pastors. And I think here were some of the massive benefits to myself as a college pastor that Travis provided. One was when there was stuff that felt beyond my pay grade, I had someone I could go to. And so Travis is a deacon at University Heights, and deacons at our church are not a power structure. They really are a servant body, but they're typically well-connected generalists. So they could help point to other resources if we needed it. And so, we had a time where we had a guy that had some pretty significant mental health stuff that publicly threatened people in our ministry. And Travis could help navigate how to handle that situation. Or we had one semester where we had 6 students report sexual abuse for the very first time that happened either on campus or recently in school. And I could make sure that I was never carrying that in a vacuum. And so anytime there was something that kind of felt up beyond me as at the time, a 23-year-old, Travis was in the know about all of those. So I was never on an island in ministry in that way. And Travis helped in those ways a ton. I'd say another specific way that Travis helped a lot was when I needed help, which I needed lots of help in a variety of ways. He knew who to talk to in our church that could help. I might not have been as connected with people that weren't my age or college students. And so other older adults or things like that, he had a historical knowledge of our church. So when I said, hey, man, I'm really thinking about this event, who would be helpful? He knew all those people. He knew who to ask and who could help and how they could help. And so those are some of the specific ways that Travis helped. I think one last thing I'd just brag on Travis about is he viewed our relationship in part as helping develop me. And so he wasn't looking to me to be an expert. He actually just supported me as a learning leader. And so he gave space for me to fall. And when I did, he was there to pick me up and encourage me and say, hey, man, let's try this again. I really believe in you. And so I never felt pressure from Travis to be more than I knew I was. I actually felt security with Travis because of how he cared for me and showed up for me as a servant leader. I preached at Truth just last night on a Tuesday, and I said in the room, when Travis is in the room, I know things are going to be okay. because he's always going to take care of things that need to be taken care of. Often messes that I made accidentally. And so just to brag on Travis, to the college pastor in the room that's listening to this, you might not get a Travis Henderson at your church. I pray you do. Pray you get more than one. But they're in your church and they want to serve. And you'll empower them to serve by just saying, hey, I really need help here. Don't pretend to try to be the expert.
Yeah.
And Travis was great at helping in those ways.
Just listen to both of you guys talk. It just seems like the number one factor between adult leader, college minister is trust. Trust in that leader, trust in that college minister, and doing what you can to develop that trust between each other. And I'm thinking, Travis, as you just started, as you got into this, you just said, hey, where's my place to serve, which started out as cooking. Doesn't seem to be spiritual at all, but it is, and it leads to a lot of great things. That was an open door for you to serve in. So I'm thinking, again, some more advice for the college minister out there is how can you create opportunities to involve adults in the ministry that you're doing, even if it's cooking, even if it's hosting at a home or something of that nature, to get adults involved, and then building those relationships of trust to where you trust each other. And Chris, something you said a minute ago, which I thought this is something that most young leaders are missing, is that when you were tapping into Travis, you were tapping into history. You were tapping into a log of a network of people within the local body that have answers, that have resources that you need as a college ministry. But if you push adults out, then you miss all that. Yeah. And you kind of disconnect yourself. So, man, that just is there's just a wealth of opportunity and support there that we can miss if we're not careful. So, Travis, let me ask you this question: What are some common mistakes that you think college ministers make in that relationship with adult leaders?
And I'll close my ears, Travis. You can be as honest as you need to be.
Yeah.
All right, man?
Or you know what? Or you could just throw Chris totally under the bus. Whatever you want to do here.
I could name multiple.
Hey, well, I'd love for you to chime in as soon as he answers.
Go for it, Travis.
One thing we talk about a lot here at University Heights is your capacity as a leader.
Uh-huh.
So, Mitch, you can be a college pastor. Chris, you can be a college pastor, and I can be a college pastor. But at some point in time, we're going to hit our ceiling. Mm-hmm. We're going to hit our limit if we try to do it on our own.
That's right.
And your limit is different than my limit and different than Chris's limit. But you're going to hit that ceiling. So you may come in and there's 50 people in your ministry and you grow up to 150. But then once you hit 150, that's your ceiling and it starts going back down. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen that happen different times, and we want to avoid that. And so one of the things we try to do is come alongside the college pastor and say, okay, look, we're here for you to do this, but you can't do this all by yourself.
Yeah.
Like you can, but it's going to wear you out. And I think Chris and I've had a couple of those conversations, like, Chris, step away from the ledge. Like Chick-fil-A would love to have you come work there, but God's called you to this. But those just coming alongside and saying, hey, let us help you with this, because when you increase the number of people working with you and that are helping you, you increase your capacity. And that way, when Chris leaves or the next college pastor leaves, you still have that structure, you still have those connections, and you're not, your ministry doesn't just diminish greatly when you lose a person. And so that'd be one thing that I would say. And I think another one would be, I think Chris, you and Chris just touched on it, like I have the history of why we do things this way. I'm not a person that thinks we should just keep doing things because we've always done it that way by any means. But there are definitely some things that, we've done and we changed doing it because whatever reason, we quit doing something or we changed doing something. And if Chris comes in and says, hey, I think we had to do it this way. I'm like, well, hold on, Chris, like we used to do it this way. And here are the issues we had. We can do it that way if you want, but here's why we quit doing it that way. So, I don't think we have any sacred cows that we're going to hold on to and say we have to do this. But at the same time, we do, there is a history there with why we do some things the way we do, why we do our midweek Bible study on Tuesday, why we do this, why we, have relationships with this group of people, just things that are historical, that so we don't have to recreate the wheel every time we have somebody new come in.
Totally.
I think one thing I can just hear Travis's voice from probably 8 years ago, 7 years ago, saying, Chris, we gotta know what's going on. Man, if I had $1 for every time I heard that, it's a growth area still in my life I struggle with now as a lead pastor. But we had an army of adults that were eager to love and serve college students. And because I'm often a kind of, let's go take the hill right now kind of guy, then I would often just leave them behind. And Travis would say, Chris, you're going to lose this whole team if you don't learn how to communicate with them. And so that wasn't a hard fix. And Travis coached me through that and helped me do that. And so we just switched to a pre-semester team meeting. So before the semester launched, we had a whole calendar of largely what we were going to do. And then we just divvied it up, like who's going to own this, who's going to own this. And so every adult knew a snapshot of the semester calendar and the rhythms of what we were doing and how they fit into the bigger picture. And man, when we did that, it changed the game. Like adults were easy to take ownership because they just knew what was happening. I think now as a parent, I've got like things change when T-ball season starts, So it's like, I can't serve on this night anymore. And if I knew that this was coming, I could make plans for it. But I just remember Travis sitting me down saying, Chris, we got to know what's going on. I think sometimes college guys can get stuck just being with students and just making plans, and they're on campus and they're in their own world. And you're going to miss a whole team of helpers just by communication deficits. And so that was a big one that I still grieve.
That's a great word. I mean, two things I'm hearing so far is developing that relationship of trust and then clear communication of what's happening and what's going on. I think those are huge. And Chris, even I know that UHBC, University Heights, is planning a trip to the well where you're at.
Right.
Well, you think about that is largely being led by adult volunteers. You don't build those relationships. You don't get a mission team in the spring break. So it's like you're still reaping rewards of investing in that church and those people that are creating these ties, network ties that are just benefiting the kingdom, beyond that local context. So
and just to brag on University Heights for a second, that there's a spring break trip happening, and there's currently no college pastor. So UHBC's college ministry right now is being run by adult leaders solely. Why? Because there's a great team. And so it doesn't matter when the point guy goes away, there's still a solid team and an internal structure to carry it. And so I would just say, if you're trying to do college ministry just on your back and you're not building a team in that local church, like you are missing, I would say as boldly as this, you are missing God's good design of the church by trying to just build it on your back. And so,
man, that's a word, because you think about the average, I'm totally pulling these numbers out of the top of my head, but I think the average college minister probably hangs around 3 to 5 years, maybe 3 to, and so, I think it's the mentality as a college minister, you're going into a church, is you're not going to be there forever. You're not going to lead in that ministry forever. So what's going to be there long after you're gone is those adult volunteers like Travis who have been there 20 plus years. And so you have to build those relationships and realize, hey, they're going to be there once you're gone. And I can't tell you how many ministries that I've seen over the years who a college minister leaves and basically the college ministry ceased to exist because there wasn't that group of leaders that was formed to support the ministry and continue it long after the college ministers are gone. I mean, you have, if you're watching our YouTube, I'm making this, gesture of like it goes up, when you got a minister, then it'll just go down and drop and, and there's nothing. And so you have to build that support through trust and communication. So, Travis, anything else, any other advice that you would give to a college minister on, building that relationship with adult leaders, or any advice, wisdom you may give to a young guy or gal out there leading?
Yes. One of the ways I think you grow as a team is by, like Chris said, spending that time together, planning together, but also serving together.
Yeah.
When you're out, like we're getting ready to go down to San Marcos and hang out with Chris at the well. We're taking some adults with us that are going to serve, and that galvanizes our relationship as well. Like when you go serve with somebody, that just solidifies your relationship, and you get to see, okay, wow, this person's really doing this well, or Charlie's really going to do this, Amy's really going to do this. We got all these adults that are going on this trip, and we may have as many adults as we have students go. I don't know, but we're going, and we're going to go serve. And when you get to go share Jesus with people, with others, and just serve with others, that really just strengthens that bond. And you're like, okay, like I may not necessarily agree with Chris's decision, that he made, or whoever's decision, but man, it's fun when we go serve together.
Yeah.
And you just get to, it just really changes it, and you see that you're all in this together, and this is why we're doing it.
Yeah, man, great word. Chris, what you got to add, brother?
Yeah, I think I just want to ask a question of you, Travis. Travis, if you were just going to encourage, you got to sit down with a brand new college guy or gal, and they were leading a ministry, and they just stepped into a church, what would you tell them would help make it easier for adults to jump into that ministry? Like, hey, here's some things that I just encourage you to do to help build out an adult team. Like, what would be some things you'd tell that person?
Well, number one is, like you said, include people. Like when we calendared stuff out and said, okay, I need somebody to help with this. Who's got this? Who's got this? That would be one thing. And then the other thing is just building those relationships. Build those relationships with the people in your church. Find out who's interested in college ministry. Find out, just by talking to people. And that's one of the things I love is assimilation, getting people plugged in with people that, have like experience, or students that are going into a career field. And we have somebody that's an expert here in our church, like making those connections with people. So I think it's the same thing with the new minister coming in, is make those connections, or find you a person or two that can help you make those connections. And I don't know, I'm sure I drug you along to meetings with people like, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
And because they want to know more about what we're doing, or they wanted to, and sometimes it worked and they jumped in, sometimes it didn't, and they didn't jump in, but that was okay. All we can do is ask and give people that opportunity. And I think, like maybe one of the things we did, Chris, that was good for that was when we have lunch after church on Sundays, we would invite key leaders to come, just hang out with us, or people just to come serve. And just so they would be sitting at a table with college students and just get to meet them. And then, let them make that decision. Do you want to be involved with this, or do you not want to be involved with this? Either way, we're fine, but we're just giving you the opportunity.
Yeah, that reminds me, Travis, of something that I thought went really well, that kind of took us into a new season of expanding our adult leader team, was we created different levels of engagement for adult leaders. And so, you're not going to have just buckets of Travis Hendersons. I mean, Travis says he just retired from a job. I'm not actually convinced he ever worked at another job. Like he legitimately was at everything we did. Sometimes I thought Travis put in more hours for our church than I did. And so, that's between him and the Lord and TDCJ. But what we did was we created once a month opportunities for families. And so we had a thing called just family groups, where if you were a leader in our college ministry, whether as a leader in training, small group leader, intern, then you were a part of a family group. And all we asked that family group to do was host a nice meal once a month and pray for and encourage that group of students. And we put about 4 to 6 college students in a family group. And some of those relationships carried on way past college. And a lot of them didn't, but we just said, hey, if you're a family in our church that could host students just once a month, and then maybe reach out to them one other time a month and just encourage them, say, hey, I'm praying for you today. so that it created different capacities for adult leaders to jump in and serve in college ministry. And I think that changed the game for us. We went from having maybe 10 to 15 adults involved to, goodness, Travis, I mean, probably 30 plus as far as different adults that were engaging in college ministry, because we created different levels of engagement. And so don't get locked into thinking an adult leader has to be at everything. They have to be at the midweek. They have to be at this. They have to be at that. No, they don't. They can engage students in a lot of different ways. I think that was a helpful shift that we saw happen in our ministry.
Man, great stuff. Great and great idea of, because everyone is at a different season, different place. I'm even thinking about me and Olivia right now. We're very involved in our college ministry, but now with 2 little ones, that looks totally different. So what are some different levels of involvement? That is really good. Well, guys, I appreciate both of you guys jumping on. And Travis, I don't know why, I was just thinking about this. I feel like as I've looked through Roundup photos through the years, I feel like you're in like probably 50% of them. Like in the background, I can just see Travis's head, like in the background. He's a connector, and it's been great to hear stories about how you've leveraged. By the way, Roundup is our event we do in May. That Travis's comes with UHBC, but even to see like how you've leverage ministry opportunities there with your profession and working with the prisons to help, folks that are getting out of prison get places of churches and jobs. And so just super thankful for you, Travis, and the way you serve your local church, the way you, not just at your local church, but churches all over Texas, since you've been involved in what we're doing in Roundup and other things as well. So friends, I appreciate you guys being on. And any last words before we jump off?
I do.
Yeah.
Just looking back, when you've done this long enough, it gets fun because you have those connections, and when you have, like Chris said, you have that longevity. We have former students that are out now that are teachers or counselors in public schools, and when they have people graduate, they're like, "Hey, you're going to Sam Houston. You need to hook up with University Heights. Like here's like I'm going to send Travis your name and number." Or for example, this past semester in the fall, one of my mom's friends that she's known for 40-something years called her and said, "Hey, my grandson's at Sam Houston. Does Travis still work with college kids there? I want to get him hooked up." Well, he's one of our leaders in training now because we got connected. Wow. And, it doesn't always work, but it's so fun when it does work. You get to see the generational things come through. And that's for me, that's really rewarding to see that, generationally come through.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, just to see it generation after generation. What a cool thing. Well, guys, thanks for being on. And friends, thanks for listening today, or thanks for watching on our YouTube channel. Hey, don't forget, Roundup will be May 11th through 13th in 2022. That'll be in Fort Worth, Texas. We'd love to have you there. If you're a college minister, come. If you got some student leaders, bring them with you. It's an excellent event. We hope to pack it out to help resource you and collaborate you with other ministries. So stay tuned. We got more episodes coming of the Roundup podcast, and we just appreciate you listening. So we'll see you next time.